Take the points and run. That is my instant match reaction and feelings after Chelsea win their Champions League return at Stamford Bridge against Benfica 1-0. Another highly unconvincing performance, but a result and a win that is desperately needed. You do ponder how much that's going to lead into the weekend's game, but listen, Chelsea had to get a positive result tonight. They have. In terms of a viewing experience, I mean, it was not a great game. I think it was a spectacle from a Chelsea point of view that was quite painful and stressful at times to watch. Wasn't that enjoyable from an attacking point of view, especially in the second half where things got really scrappy, really disjointed, and defensively, although Chelsea got there in the end, there were still some concerns throughout the game. Given we have conceded goals and there have been moments of some real individual blunders, we didn't see that tonight, especially as the game wore on and Chelsea were clinging on to a slim lead. So that's a positive, at least for this game, but we also did see another red card. Right at the end, Joao Pedro decides to kick a high boot when he doesn't really need to, and he gets himself sent off. Luckily, it didn't cost us a game. It was too late to really cost us the game because there was only like a few seconds left. But it's a weird one to try and analyse because I guess if you're Maresca and I guess if you're being really positive, it's a difficult period. We just needed to find a way to win, and we found a way to win. If you're someone looking at it from a performance aspect point of view, where you want to see connections start to grow, you want to really look at this and find some substance in the performance. Wasn't really that kind of night. I don't think this is a game we're going to be replaying, but what it does mean is, at the very least, there's not more negativity after this game, and I think that is something we can all kind of welcome. So the starting 11 was rotated, and there were names in it that I know just from a social media reaction didn't get a great response, but I wasn't entirely surprised. Rob Sanchez, a back four of Malo Gusto, Trev Chalobah, Benoit Badiashile, Cucurella, midfielder Fernandes, Caicedo obviously getting through that knock he received. And then the three behind the striker, Pedro Neto, Buonanotte, Garnacho, and Tyreek George as the centre forward. I said in my preview, I just had a feeling that Benoit Badiashile was going to make his way into the starting 11. He did. In terms of Caicedo being ready, I mean, it seems like Andre Santos at the moment has an issue because he wasn't in the matchday squad. Reggie Walsh and Max Merrick was even, so some of the youngsters getting on the bench for Chelsea. Romeo Lavia was also on the bench tonight. Of course, Joao Pedro did have an impact in this game negatively when he came off the bench very late on, so Buonanotte got the chance. Really happy that Garnacho started, and I do think obviously he had a hand in Chelsea's winner tonight, although it was an own goal that won Chelsea the game tonight. And Tyreek George starting with, once again, no Mark Guiu to speak of. And the longer that goes on, the more you start to ponder, not only is Maresca just not interested in playing this guy at all, but is there even something else going on where it's like we're waiting till January? Because I think there's a rule that he can't play for 3 clubs. You can't play for, more than 3 clubs? 3 clubs in one season. So they may be waiting till January at this point to send him back on loan, and maybe we get Mega from Strasbourg early. There has been that kind of rumour going around. Chelsea didn't start the game well, and I think if you're Jose Mourinho, if you're Benfica, you will walk away from this game tonight feeling like they could have got much more out of this game in terms of shots, in terms of their creativity, especially in the first period of the game when, especially down that left side of their attack, right side of Chelsea's defence, Chelsea looked really fragile. I thought that some of the defending from Malo Gusto early on was really concerning. And just the nature of the way it seemed like Benfica came to the bridge and weren't just content to sit back, they actually wanted to get forward. I think there was a time when Pavlidis, there were many times where he got into some really good positions, and given this is the guy who scores all the goals for Benfica, didn't take enough shots on goal, and I think Chelsea were quite lucky there in that aspect. I thought, the first period of the game, Chelsea were not really threading anything together in attack, but being transitioned on quite quickly, and that was concerning. But once we hit kind of the end of the first 20 minutes, Chelsea started to find a little bit of rhythm. And really, I think, the goal itself was, I think, a reflection on kind of the most positive thing tonight. And that was, for me, Pedro Neto. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but for me, Pedro Neto is the standout Chelsea player tonight. I mean, unless you're looking at a defensive aspect, that we've kept a clean sheet, and Sanchez did have to make a couple of saves. Nothing, world class, but he did have to make a couple of saves. In terms of a creative aspect, in terms of a driving force, in terms of someone trying to make things happen on a night where things attack-wise just weren't clicking, didn't look there for Chelsea at all, Pedro Neto was the guy. This was a great performance, I think, from Pedro Neto. We're just in a really strong one, again, in difficult circumstances. The ball he plays to the back post, we kept on playing these crosses, and whether it was Neto or Garnacho, there were really good crosses being put in that 6-yard box throughout the evening, really, but especially in that first half, and we just lacked a focal point. We lacked a centre forward who had the instinct, the natural kind of wisdom and experience, and just understanding of where you're supposed to be when that ball goes into the box. And Tyreek George doesn't have that. I think the centre forward Tyreek George thing it still baffles me. We're going along with it. I even think Mark Guiu, I'm not saying Mark Guiu would have taken opportunities, but I think Mark Guiu, as a natural striker, would have got himself at least into the area to capitalise on that. So I think that was really frustrating, and where Chelsea, against a physical and quite sort of constructed defence by Mourinho, Otamendi and Silva, we just never got much change out of that. And I think that's why Chelsea really struggled to ever feel like they were really on top of Benfica. But the ball to the back post, there's Garnacho. Does well to get the ball back into the 6-yard box, back across the goal, flash across the goal into a really dangerous area. And that's the fortune and the luck you make for yourself. It comes off Rios, it goes into the back of the net. It's a scrappy, scruffy, unremarkable, a goal that you will not be looking back on with any fondness, really. In terms of the first goal back at the bridge at Stamford on a Champions League night, I mean, no one's going to be replaying it. But in terms of Garnacho, I was really happy with some of the things I saw Garnacho, and I think it was a bit frustrating to me that he was taken off so early. If he's taken off early with the idea that he starts on Saturday, okay. But if he doesn't start on Saturday, I'm a little bit frustrated, because I thought he was one of Chelsea's better aspects, at least something about him. And Neto, I think, as two wide threats, just trying to create things, trying to make something happen. I also thought in the first half, Cucurella, as he did against Benfica in the Club World Cup, was making some really good runs in behind their defence, really finding that space. And again, when you're up against deep defence, you need runners off the ball. I spoke about this in my preview, why I wanted Garnacho in the team. So that was a positive. But other than that, I mean, for literally the rest of the game, Tyreek George did have an opportunity late on in the first half where, again, that was exactly about Cucurella getting in behind the defence, receiving a pass and cutting it back to Tyreek George, who does well, actually, to quite quickly get the ball out of his feet and have a shot, which Trubin saves. But other than that, I mean, the subs come on, Esteban comes on, Jamie Gittins comes on, Joao Pedro comes on, and it doesn't seem to make much of a difference. Esteban had a really nice bit of trickery quite late on that I thought was going to turn into something brilliant. But unfortunately, Gittins once again looked way off it against a tiring defence, 1-0 up when you're playing a little bit more on the counter. I mean, it really was disappointing, the lack of end product, the lack of anything really from Jamie Gittins, who has not started his Chelsea career strongly, unfortunately. And that attack didn't really help alleviate much pressure. It was a really scrappy game. It was a really uncomfortable watch at times. And I'm not saying that to kind of lambast this performance as like the worst thing. We won. We kept a clean sheet. And to be honest, there were offside traps that we kept quite well, especially at the edge of our box, to basically cut out any of the opportunities that Benfica were trying to create. But it certainly was not a night where you felt like Chelsea's attack without Cole Palmer was showing enough signs that they're going to be good enough to kind of maintain Chelsea's level. That's a very difficult thing to achieve, but I've just got to say what I see, and I don't think the attack comes out tonight, other than Pedro Neto and other than Garnacho in the first half, for me, as two players that I'm kind of looking at and going, yeah, I think there's something there. I think Neto just ran his socks off, and there were many times where late on, near the 90th minute, I think we may have even been another time where he's literally getting to the byline and trying to cut a ball across. So I thought he was really one of the strongest players. Caicedo locking it down in central midfield. I thought Gusto got a bit better defensively as the game went on. Chalobah and Badiashile, listen, a defensive pair. and especially Chalobah, who haven't kept clean sheets. You got to give them credit for keeping a clean sheet tonight. Cucurella, I thought, was also a kind of one of those classic Cucurella performances, really dogged, really determined, really aggressive, touch tight with his attackers and being really scrappy and just aggressive consistently, which is what we want to see from Marc Cucurella. But in terms of a performance that, I'm going to look back on with much fondness, or kind of just, have in my memory, that isn't really there. I mean, this is a classic take the points and run. And what you kind of have to extract from these performances is more psychological, is more kind of, we got through a difficult period and a difficult moment when we've been conceding goals cheaply, kept a clean sheet, we've got a win in the Champions League. And then we move on to Liverpool, which is going to be a very, very, very different game. Benfica, although they were attack-minded a little bit, they were still defensively rigid. They are a very, very experienced Champions League team. That's what you have to understand about them. These are not Conference League opponents. This is at a higher level. And it's not trying to dismiss that. Liverpool will be different because, of course, they are a much higher quality team, but they will attack Chelsea and they will leave space and kind of a game state that we don't usually see. And sometimes as I always think, that kind of benefits Maresca's Chelsea a lot more. So that is a completely different factor. But, I don't think many people will be walking out of Stamford Bridge or just walking away from this game feeling like, oh yeah, that was the real resounding victory we needed. I think it was like, yes, we won, we move on, and hopefully that it can be the start of a slow start to returning to some form. So those are my thoughts on tonight's game. Listen, Chelsea won in the Champions League. They needed to win tonight. It's a block of games, this, Ajax, Paphos. There is a run of games in this league phase that Chelsea have to get points on the board, especially after losing the first one, and tonight was the first of those, and they got the job done on Mourinho's return to the bridge. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours, and I'll see you again very, very soon. All the best.